My mother-in-law said, "Once she signs this, the money's ours." My husband smiled and said, "She trusts me too much." I looked at the paper, then signed it. 6 days later, their lawyer called me urgently because what I signed was. My mother-in-law said, "Once she signs this, the money's ours." My husband answered, "She trusts me too much." I was upstairs when I heard it. The house used to belong to my grandmother, Eleanor. After she died 2 months earlier, everything in it became mine. The house, the land, the investment accounts. The lawyer said the estate was worth a little over $4 million. I never expected that kind of inheritance. My grandmother had always been private about money. When the will was read, the room went silent. My husband Daniel squeezed my hand and said we would figure everything out together. That was what I believed until the afternoon I heard that conversation. I had gone upstairs to sort through old boxes from the attic. The air vent near the hallway carried sound straight from the kitchen. I was kneeling on the floor when Patricia's voice drifted up clearly. "Once she signs this, the money's ours." Daniel answered without hesitation. "She trusts me too much." I stayed completely still. For a few seconds I waited for one of them to laugh and say it was a joke. That never happened. Patricia said, "The lawyer confirmed it will work. After the transfer goes through, she can't undo it." Daniel said, "Good. I'll give it to her tonight." I stood up slowly. My first thought was that I misunderstood something. Daniel and I had been married 10 years. He had always been calm, responsible, reliable. Patricia could be controlling, but nothing like this. Then I heard Daniel again. "She never reads legal documents anyway." I walked downstairs before they could say anything else. They stopped talking when they saw me. Patricia was standing at the counter with a folder in front of her. Daniel picked it up quickly. "Hey," he said. "Perfect timing." "What's that?" I asked. "Just paperwork from the financial advisor. Stuff about your grandmother's accounts." He opened the folder and pulled out a document. The page was filled with legal language that looked like every other contract I had ever seen. Daniel pointed to the bottom. "Just sign here. It allows me to manage the investments so you don't have to deal with all the details." Patricia nodded. "You've never liked dealing with financial people." They both looked completely calm. If I had not heard that conversation upstairs, I probably would have signed without thinking. Instead, I looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then I picked up the pen and signed the paper. Daniel took the document immediately and closed the folder. "That was quick," he said. The rest of the evening felt strangely normal. Patricia made dinner. Daniel talked about work. No one mentioned the document again. 6 days passed. Then my phone rang while I was sitting at my desk at work. The number belonged to the estate attorney who handled my grandmother's will. I answered. The man on the phone sounded serious. "Mrs. Carter, this is Michael Reeves. I need to ask you about a document you signed last week." My stomach tightened. "What document?" "The one transferring control of the entire estate to your husband." I stayed silent. Then he added something that made everything feel even worse. "There's a serious problem with that document. It should not exist." The lawyer waited for me to respond. I asked, "What do you mean it shouldn't exist?" Michael Reeves spoke carefully. "Your grandmother placed a protection clause in her will. Any transfer of the estate within the first year requires direct approval from the estate office. We never approved anything." My mind went back to the paper Daniel had given me. "So the transfer isn't valid?" I asked. There was a short silence. "It's more complicated than that," he said. "The document you sign looks official. The formatting is close to ours, the language is similar, and your signature is real. But the document itself did not come from this office." "You're saying it's fake?" "Yes." I leaned back in my chair. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then he said something else. "There's another issue. Whoever prepared this document attempted to file it with the county yesterday." Attempted. The clerk flagged it. "Some of the reference numbers in the document belong to different estate cases. That's why they contacted us." My heart was beating harder now. "So what happens next?" "We need to review everything before anything moves forward," he said. "For now, nothing has been transferred. But someone clearly intended to move ownership of the estate assets to your husband." I looked around the empty office. "Can they do that without me?" "Not legally." The word legally stayed in my head. Before ending the call, he asked one more question. "Mrs. Carter, Did you fully understand the document when you signed it? I answered honestly. No. Then I strongly recommend you come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring any copies you have and do not sign anything else for anyone. The call ended. I sat there staring at my phone. 10 years of marriage ran through my mind. Vacations, holidays, small routines. Daniel had always been the person I trusted the most. Now a lawyer was telling me my husband had tried to take control of my entire inheritance using a document that did not come from the estate office. I left work early that day. When I got home, Daniel was in the living room working on his laptop. He looked up. "You're home early." "Slow day," I said. He closed the laptop halfway. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." I walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. Patricia was not there that evening, which made the house quieter than usual. Daniel came into the kitchen a moment later. "By the way," he said, "the paperwork you signed last week is almost processed. Once it's finalized, I'll start reorganizing the investment accounts." I nodded. "Sounds good." He seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to the living room. That night I barely slept. The next morning I went to Michael Reeves' office. He placed a copy of the document on the desk between us. The moment I saw it, I recognized my signature at the bottom. But the title at the top of the page made my stomach drop. It said Full Asset Transfer Agreement. I looked up at him. "That's not what Daniel told me." Reeves nodded. "I assumed as much." He flipped to the last page. "According to this document, you voluntarily transferred control of the estate, the house, and all investment accounts to your husband. For what reason?" I asked. "That section says you requested him to manage everything due to lack of financial experience." I let out a quiet breath. Then the lawyer said something unexpected. "However, whoever wrote this made a very unusual mistake." "What kind of mistake?" He tapped the middle of the page. "A mistake that might actually protect you." I leaned closer. "What mistake?" Reeves looked directly at me. "The document doesn't just transfer control. It also gives you something your husband probably didn't notice." I looked at the page again. "What does it give me?" I asked. Michael Reeves slid the document closer and pointed to a paragraph buried in the middle of the page. "Right here." The paragraph was surrounded by dense legal wording that most people would skip. Reeves read the lines slowly. "In the event of any dispute regarding the administration or ownership of the transferred assets, the original estate beneficiary retains unilateral authority to initiate an immediate financial audit and asset freeze without notice." I looked up. "I don't understand." "It means this," he said. "If you suspect misuse or fraud, you can legally freeze every account tied to the estate. Silly. No warning." I stared at him. "That includes accounts your husband controls?" "Yes." "How long would the freeze last?" "Until a court determines the transfer was legitimate." He leaned back in his chair. "In other words, the person who drafted this document accidentally gave you the strongest protection clause possible." My mind went quiet for a moment. "So if Daniel tries to move the money, you can stop everything." I thought about the conversation I heard through the vent. "Once she signs this, the money's ours." Daniel clearly believed the document gave him full control. He probably never expected anyone to read the middle of it. Reeves continued. "There's another reason I called you urgently. Whoever tried to file this document yesterday may attempt to move funds quickly once it goes through. Can they do that before it's approved? They might try. People who create forged documents often move money before questions start." I sat there thinking. Daniel had not acted differently over the last few days. He was calm, confident. That meant he believed everything was working, which also meant he might try to move the money soon. "What do you recommend?" I asked. Reeves answered immediately. "Wait." "For what?" "For them to act." I frowned. "Why?" "Because right now we only have a suspicious document. If your husband actually attempts to transfer estate funds using it, that becomes something much more serious." "Forgery?" I asked. "And financial fraud." I looked down at the paper again. My own signature stared back at me. "Do you think my husband made this?" Reeves shook his head slightly. "Hard to say, but someone went to a lot of effort to make it look convincing." He paused before adding something else. "There is one more detail you should know." "What?" "The document was prepared by a lawyer." I blinked. A real lawyer? Yes. The formatting and legal structure are professional. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. A thought crossed my mind immediately. Daniel didn't make it himself. No. So someone helped him. Reeves folded his hands. That would be my assumption. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from Daniel. Good news. I'm meeting with the bank this afternoon about the estate accounts. I showed the message to Reeves. He read it once. Then he gave a small nod. Well, he said, that answers our question. What question? Whether they're planning to move the money. My chest felt tight. What should I do? He slid a card across the desk. This is the direct number for the bank's legal department. If your husband attempts to transfer estate funds today, call them immediately. And say what? Tell them you're invoking the audit clause in the transfer agreement. I picked up the card. What happens if I do that? Reeves gave a calm answer. Every account connected to the estate will freeze within minutes. I nodded slowly. Then something else occurred to me. Wait. Reeves looked at me. What? You said the document was written by a lawyer. Yes. So whose lawyer was it? He opened a folder and turned one page toward me. At the bottom was a printed name. The moment I saw it, I recognized it instantly. It was Patricia's attorney. My mother-in-law's lawyer. Seeing that name changed everything. Patricia's lawyer had handled several things for her over the years. Real estate paperwork, tax issues, small business contracts. I had met him twice at family dinners. His name was Richard Halpern. Now his name was printed at the bottom of the forged transfer agreement. I looked at Reeves. So Patricia arranged this. Reeves answered carefully. It strongly suggests she was involved. I tried to process it. 10 years with Daniel. Holidays with his family. Patricia bringing food when we moved into our first apartment. None of it matched the situation sitting on the desk in front of me. Reeves closed the folder. For now, the best thing you can do is act normal. And wait for them to try moving the money? Yes. I nodded and left his office. During the drive home, I kept replaying that message from Daniel. Meeting with the bank this afternoon. When I walked into the house, Daniel was already getting ready to leave. He was adjusting his watch near the door. Hey, he said. I was just about to head out. For the bank. Yeah. Just routine stuff with the estate accounts. I watched him grab his car keys. How long will it take? Probably an hour. He smiled. Once this is done, everything will be organized. You won't have to deal with any of it. He left the house 5 minutes later. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I took out the card Reeves had given me. I placed it on the kitchen table and sat down. Then I waited. 23 minutes later, my phone rang. The number belonged to the bank. My stomach tightened as I answered. Mrs. Carter? The woman asked. Yes. This is Linda Torres from the bank's legal compliance office. Your husband, Daniel Carter, is currently here attempting to initiate several large transfers from accounts associated with the Eleanor Whitmore estate. I closed my eyes for a second. What kind of transfers? 3 investment accounts and the primary estate holding account. The total amount is approximately $3.8 million. So that was their plan. Move everything at once. Torres continued. He provided a document indicating he now has full authority over the estate assets. Before we process anything, we are required to verify with the original beneficiary. I looked at the card again. Reeves' instructions were clear. What happens if I challenge it? I asked. The accounts would be frozen immediately while the legal department reviews the document. I thought about Daniel sitting inside that bank right now. Confident. Probably believing everything was about to become his. I took a breath. I'd like to invoke the audit clause in the transfer agreement. There was a short pause. Understood, Torres said. Mrs. Carter, once this is activated, all accounts connected to the estate will be frozen instantly. That's fine. Very well. I heard typing on her keyboard. Then she said something that surprised me. Mrs. Carter, your husband is currently sitting across from me. I stayed silent. Torres continued. He looks very confident. More typing. Then she stopped. Well, she said quietly. That's going to change. What happened? I asked. The freeze just activated. In the background I heard Daniel's voice. What do you mean frozen? Another voice answered him. Torres returned to the phone. He's asking questions. What are you telling him? The truth. She paused, then added something that made my heart start racing again. Mrs. Carter, there's something else. What? When the freeze activated, the system flagged several transactions your husband attempted to schedule yesterday. What kind of transactions? Transfers to 2 private accounts. My grip tightened on the phone. Whose accounts? Trish checked something. Then she answered. One belongs to Daniel Carter. And the other? There was another pause. The second account belongs to Patricia Carter, my mother-in-law. $3.8 million. They were about to take everything. Torres lowered her voice slightly. Mrs. Carter, Daniel just realized the accounts are frozen. I heard Daniel again in the background. This must be a mistake. Torres said quietly into the phone. He's asking who authorized the freeze. I looked at the document on the table. Then I answered. You can tell him the truth. I did. He sounded almost impressed. I told him his wife did. For a few seconds the line was quiet. Then I heard Daniel's voice clearly through the phone. What do you mean my wife froze the accounts? Someone at the bank answered him, but I could not make out the words. Linda Torres spoke again. He looks confused. Is he still there? I asked. Yes. Good. Another voice joined the conversation in the background. Daniel sounded irritated now. This is ridiculous. I have legal authority. Torres muted the phone for a moment. I heard muffled voices. Then she came back. He's showing us the transfer document again. That's fine, I said. Mrs. Carter, she continued, our legal team is reviewing it right now. They already noticed several irregularities. My heart was beating faster. What kind of irregularities? The estate authorization number on the document belongs to a completely different probate case. Exactly what Reeves had mentioned. More voices echoed behind her. Then Torres spoke again, quieter this time. Mrs. Carter, our legal department just contacted the county clerk. And the document was never officially registered. So the transfer isn't real. No, she said. It isn't. I heard Daniel again, louder now. What is going on? Torres lowered her voice. I think he's starting to realize something is wrong. Just then another voice appeared near her phone. A man. Mrs. Carter, this is Mark Ellison from the bank's fraud department. Yes. We're going to need you to come to the bank today. Why? Because based on what we're seeing, this may involve attempted financial fraud. I stayed silent. Then Ellison added one more sentence. And your husband is still sitting right in front of us. I drove to the bank 20 minutes later. Daniel was still there. When I walked into the conference room, he looked at me like I had just done something insane. What is this? He asked. You froze the accounts? I sat down across the table. Yes. Patricia was not there yet, but Daniel's phone kept lighting up with messages from her. He ignored them. The bank's fraud officer placed the document I had signed on the table. Mr. Carter provided this as proof he controls the estate. Daniel nodded. Because she signed it. The officer looked at me. Mrs. Carter, did you understand what this document was when you signed it? No, I said. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? The officer slid another paper across the table. This document was never issued by the estate attorney. It also contains multiple fraudulent reference numbers. Daniel's expression changed. That's impossible. Another person entered the room at that moment. It was Michael Reeves. He placed a folder on the table. Actually, it's very possible. Daniel stared at him. Reeves opened the folder and showed several pages. These were filed this morning with the County Fraud Division. Daniel looked from Reeves to me. What did you do? I asked a lawyer to review the paper you gave me. Silence filled the room. Reeves continued. The document was prepared using the credentials of attorney Richard Halpern. Daniel said nothing. But Mr. Halpern denies authorizing it, Reeves added. At that exact moment the door opened again. 2 detectives walked into the room. One of them spoke directly to Daniel. Daniel Carter? Yes. We need you to come with us regarding an attempted financial fraud investigation. Daniel looked at me again, completely stunned. You set me up. I shook my head. No. You and your mother did that yourselves. One of the detectives placed handcuffs on him. Later that afternoon, Patricia was arrested as well. The forged document, the attempted transfers, and the bank records were enough evidence. In less than 48 hours, everything collapsed for them. The estate remained untouched. $3.8 million was still legally mine. But the strange part was that the money no longer mattered. 10 years of marriage had ended inside a bank conference room. And after that day, trusting anyone again became the hardest thing I had ever faced.